This is Fieldsports Channel News. A plan to reintroduce lynx to Scotland to control the deer population with big cats is doomed to failure. That's the view of a farmer who went to Switzerland as part of a fact-finding initiative organised by the group planning to free lynx in the Highlands. John McPherson joined CEOs, forestry representatives, deer stalkers and members of the sheep farming community to examine a similar scheme which has existed in Switzerland for 60 years. He believes a poor track record of consulting interested groups on the reintroduction of beavers and white-tailed eagles shows Scotland is incapable of making the lynx programme work. He says the Swiss programme is based on consultation and cooperation, and what's not being considered is what the big cats will actually eat.
Red listed species that they're trying to preserve, the capercaillie and the waders, etc. You know, they would not stop at livestock, although their main prey is roe deer in Switzerland. But nobody, in this country, nobody seems to bring to the front of the argument the actual physical presence of an apex predator, eating, killing, consuming, live animals. We've not had that in this country for hundreds of years. And why is it okay now, without, we don't wait until we hear about cats and dogs being predated, then the general public, the more general public would have a huge outcry about it.
Is it all up for English deer? The Forestry Commission in England is joining its sister organisation, Forestry and Land Scotland, in calling for a massive cull. The government's Woodlands Agency and landowner claims it is campaigning to support other landowners managing deer. It believes there are more than 2 million in the UK. It wants female deer targeted more than males. The British Deer Society praises the government announcement.
It's nice to see the Forestry Commission have latched on to, well, I suppose they always have been aware that the key to controlling deer is all about female numbers. You can have as many male deer as you like, but if there are too many females, they will increase. So we've been fixated, I think, on male deer for far too long. The other nice point to see, as the Forestry Commission statement, is, of course, the fact they're saying now that deer are not vermin, which they most certainly are not vermin, but for far too long, in a lot of quarters, that's how they've been treated. So the British Deer Society want to see deer treated with a bit of respect, but practically, which means the numbers have got to be kept under control.
Jeremy Clarkson proposes one solution for deer: feed them to children. In the latest series of Clarkson's Farm on Amazon Prime, he calls for venison to be used as part of the school dinner menu across the UK. It's a strategy the Deer Society proposed to DEFRA 18 months ago. Here's Charles Smith-Jones again.
This is actually an idea that the British Deer Society had. We were saying, let's use venison. It's a very healthy form of red meat. It's probably the most ethically defensible red meat. It's high in the good fats, low in the bad fats. Everything is going for it. So, yes, Jeremy Clarkson's done a wonderful job there. We need people like him to actually get the message out, because he's got a huge following and people will listen. The more people who try venison, the more converts we're going to get, because it is delicious, and too many people feel that it's posh food. It's an old-fashioned look at it, but only earls and whatevers eat venison. No, everybody can eat venison. It's incredibly good, and it needs to be on the supermarket shelves at the right price.
Bask says the shooting community has a huge role to play in eradicating the UK of some of its 2,000 alien species. It has joined Invasive Species Week in the hope of educating people about the dangers posed by non-native animals, plants and even fish to the UK environment. Creatures such as the grey squirrel and mink, which now thrive in the UK after being introduced from elsewhere, pose a threat to biodiversity because they are such efficient killers. Ian Danby from Bask makes the case for shooting to mitigate their negative impact.
And some of the impacts are quite large. So we've recently done a piece of work on the natural capital benefits of shooting. And we worked out that the existing level of control that we do as shooters of grey squirrel is avoiding the loss of around £32 million worth of carbon every year. from avoiding damage to new plantings of trees or trees which are trying to regenerate. So we've got a lot to be proud of, but we've got that role to play about vigilance, biosecurity, and taking the correct action to remove invasive non-native species where we come across them.
A protest lobby from 6 Commonwealth nations is hoping to embarrass the government via King Charles in an attempt to stop Britain banning trophy imports. The move comes after High Commissioners met DEFRA Minister Lord Richard Benyon to discuss UK government support for the hunting trophies import prohibition bill. Botswana's High Commissioner, Shimani Kalatswe, told the King it would be unjust for the UK to pass the bill without considering the impact it would have on countries reliant on hunting in their economies. They're expected to raise the issue with King Charles if he attends a meeting of Commonwealth heads in October. Safari Club International's annual Lobby Week has been hailed a success. SCI members travelled to Capitol Hill in Washington to meet key US decision makers. SCI pushed the rights of hunters to enjoy freedom to hunt. It discussed policy and worldwide conservation initiatives in meetings with policymakers and politicians in Congress. Catches of wild salmon in Scotland have reached an all-time low. In 2023, Fisheries Management Scotland recorded 32,000 fish caught from Scotland's 173 salmon rivers. Most of those fish were released after capture. Catch and release is mandatory on 111 rivers. That's the lowest catch return for Scotland since records began in 1952. The Alliance of Salmon Fishery Boards blames a combination of weather, land management and water quality issues for the decline. The IUCN, which reclassified the salmon from least concern to endangered in Great Britain in 2023, goes further and says threats to salmon include climate change, dams and barriers, salmon farming, exploitation at sea, and invasive non-native species. A new book has been launched which celebrates a year in the life of one of Britain's most enigmatic game birds, the grey partridge. Living with Greys is the brainchild of author and sporting agent Tarquin Millington Drake. It tells the story of the life cycle of the British game bird. It explores how they are affected by farming practices and land management. If you buy the book from the link below, you'll also be helping the Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust. The author believes the grey partridge is an indicator species of the wider health of the British countryside.
So it starts with insects, and hares thrive, yellowhammers, linnets, corn buntings. All these birds will benefit from a habitat that a grey partridge is thriving in.
Trap shooter Matt Coward-Holly has made his way into the British team for the Paris Olympics. The former world champion won the last quota place in the GB team for France at the European Championships in Lonato. He won bronze at the Games in Tokyo in 2020, having only originally travelled to Japan as a reserve. The Essex shooter took up shooting when he had to abandon hopes of becoming a professional rugby player after twice breaking his back. And finally, a bequest of knives from famous deerstalker Leif Bragg is to be auctioned to raise money for the Gamekeepers Welfare Trust. The Danish hunter was wildlife manager of Till Hill Forestry and donated his collection to the trust in his will. The GWT plans to sell the knives to raise funds for the families of gamekeepers it supports through difficult times. You can find out about the work of the Trust by clicking the link below.
We want them to go to people who really are going to appreciate them and honour his memory.
You are now up to date with Fieldsports Channel News. Stalking the stories, fishing for facts.